For me, the music was a passport to the world, and just dreaming about it. Pretending I was playing music with a brush and a comb, singing for a microphone or whatever, and behind the hog pen.
Zydeco accordionist, park ranger, and former NFL chief Bruce Sunpie Barnes on Soul Country No. 7, recorded in the French Quarter in New Orleans. I'm Rick Stewart, a community radio DJ since 1986 and an award-winning filmmaker, adding some real-life podcasting to get deeper into Soul Country, where we cover tales from the intersection of countrified R&B and bluesy Americana. Listen in as we revitalize our cultural roots in westerns, blues, and variety. Now a word from our sponsor. Ace Productions' documentary, Blues Rock Hits Soul Country, is chock full of exclusive performances and interviews from rock and soul Hall of Famers and Grammy winners. It's the origin story for Soul Country. Check it out at soulcountry.com. Well, Sunpie played piano, harmonica, and accordion, and chatted about tours with Paul Simon and Sting, as well as his stylistic development. Here's how it all went down.
Open up the steam house, shoveling the coal. Look out the window, see the blue smoke roll. Casey Jones, going to meet Frisco. Casey Jones, going to meet Frisco. Casey Jones, going to meet Frisco. That's something my father used to play. Used to play the old Casey Jones. So he was. He mostly played the little tongue blocking style, old style, like that. But he played, he liked, a lot of other stuff. He loved blues, period.
So that counts as a blues song and like a railroad kind of song?
Yeah.
A little bit of west?
Yeah, well, it wasn't really so far west. This is what people would play, We had railroad men all around us when we grew up. And they did songs like that. Is what people would call country music now.
I've been trying to discover where the line of all the Western things are since they've erased that name.
Western tunes like that?
Yeah, because it was like you had the movies, obviously, and then you had the places that are West.
Created a lot of confusion.
Yeah, well, Hank Williams, they were the Drifting Cowboys. He's really from Alabama, but it's just culturally it was huge that Westerns were a bigger piece of everything that anybody talked about.
Yeah, it's commercialization, so they're going for it. That's what I was this morning. I was on one of those texting threads with my brothers and sisters, and they were playing Mule Skinner's blues. So my sister sends a text. Sharon is Dolly Parton. She does a great job on it. Beautiful, Mule Skinner No. 8. And
Blue Yodel No. 8.
Yeah, Blue Yodel rather, and it was Jimmy Rogers, but he was thinking of the guy who did the singing cowboy.
Gene Autry.
Gene Autry. I said, yeah, well, they all were doing. I said, but Jimmy Rogers is the one that was from like Meridian, and he heard those songs, and he, that's why, like our father loved Jimmy Rogers. They really loved him because he yodeled, and he said, oh, yeah, they came from Switzerland. I said, yeah, but the people that he heard it from didn't come from Switzerland. They were like railroad men, and they were working, and they were mule skinners, and they yodel also.
Yeah, he made it into something more of something. Yeah.
He did. Well, he had great success because he did get to go to Hollywood also, and he didn't fit the same bill that they wanted him to. So even though he was like a kind of superstar on the radio, they didn't really want to turn him into the cowboy that they wanted. So it was Gene Autry, and it was those folks that had been in Roy Rogers. Now they moved it over, but the yodeling that they were doing came from like what the mule skinners would do also, and what you did with cattle herding. I mean, you can go in South Africa, and you will hear people doing these whistles and these calls. They've been doing it for like 40,000 years.
Oh, yeah.
The Khoisan people.
There's nothing really new.
There's nothing new like that. But it's amazing to see the trends of places where it came. And I think a lot of it also is human archetype, like these are just things that people do. But, the blue yodeler was, he was tough. he could do it.
But it became a centerpiece of blues, in the evening. And
Howlin' Wolf, all these cats.
Howlin' Wolf. Yeah, people took it and they made it their own.
They loved him because he was doing it, but they already knew something that they did because, our dad used to do, whoa, that's what you do to call a mule. You got to make them come to you to do the work, right? And he was a long line, what they call a long line skinner. So that's a person who hooks up 14 or 16 mules on a long line, and you got to talk to them, you got to cuss them out, tell them who's boss every morning, and then you got to say, hey, here's what we're about to go and do. And then you got to sing to them, and entertain them, because they're not going to do the work if you don't. They're extremely smart, so they're not going to do the work unless you sing the stuff they want to hear. And then you sing the task to them, and they'll do it. If you sing it to them, because that's how they talk. You sing it to them, they'll do it. If you don't, they shake their head right in your face and say, I ain't doing it. And they'll also try and kill you. They're going to do something dirty to you. Sing my song, I ain't doing nothing.
A field holler of type, yeah.
Mm-hmm, yeah, that's what it was. And so, there's many different platforms of it, not to, wading into them thicket.
But like as things evolved on, even Aaron Neville talks about how he's getting it off of Gene.
Gene
Autry. It becomes part of the musical, flow.
Oh, it's the flow because he's the flashpoint for. It's always like that. It's like somebody who can spark the imagination of other people. He's gonna strike you. And he was the best at that, doing that style right there. DeFord Bailey was playing all these amazing tunes, like Pan American Blues and all that stuff like that. He was like the hit at the opera also, but Roy Acuff, all these cats are, everybody trying to get a piece of pie. Music, they became the godfathers of it in a large way. So, and it's country music is kind of taking bluegrass, hillbilly music, blues, jazz.
It just devours things, yeah.
Oh yeah.
It's a very large genre in the sales. Yeah, and then Western just kind of got gobbled up and they just called country. I was upset by that, but I like the Westerns. Now, have you happened to have watched any of the, since you were a ranger, the Bass Reeves show?
Yeah, I saw the Bass Reeves show. I like most of it. It was intriguing, since I'm a little bit of a history buff too, like I like straight lines sometimes around. And frankly, it just got caught up in the strike. So they only got 8 episodes out of it. He's in Fort Smith, in Arkansas. He keeps going back there, but he's just going to quote unquote Indian territory. So,
and that type of ranger is somebody who has to cover huge distance?
He's covering huge distances, absolutely. Yeah. They have to pare it down. They're doing 43-minute episodes. And
how did you end up touring with Sting and Paul Simon? And are you going to do more, joining other people's bands in the future?
I don't know if I'm joining other people's band in the future or not. But, I just got a call from Paul Simon. He was getting ready to go out and do a tour. I'd met him through Quint Davis, actually. Some years earlier, Quint, in 2002, we had a record called Sunpie. And I'd kind of synthesized what I thought was like this Afro-Louisiana sound. So I had a lot of music that I was kind of paying homage to. Some of it was around Zydeco, blues, and then African music. I did a song for Ike Darrow called Congo Kinshasa, because he had a song that he'd done around Congo Kinshasa. But I met Paul Simon at that time. He put us on the Acura stage at that time, right before they played. And I was taking him out canoeing, and he hurt his back, like right before, tweaked it out or something. So we canceled that. But I met him then. Fast forward another 12 years, and I just get a call out of blue from him. I thought it was out the blue, to come up and maybe audition for his band. He was getting ready to do that tour that he did. So, he sent me some music. I sent him some, and I went up there. It was 2013, and spent a weekend playing music with him and his band, played with, and they recorded some music with a Spanish flamenco dancer and a guy playing cajon. And went back. I was like, well, that was fun. And this was like early October. And he called me back in November and asked me if I wanted to come up and do some rehearsals and do a tour with him. So I did. So we started the tour in January of 2014. And then, I thought it was just his band at first, but then it was Paul and Sting. You played 30 songs. Sometimes I played harmonica.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
I played Sting songs and harmonica. I played some of Paul's songs. He's got, he loves harmonica, and he was, he was in all kinds of folk.
Because I was remembering, he's got all kinds. He's very experimental of which direction he's going to take it, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I love Paul Simon's music because he did do all that. He had imagination for all those things, and of course, his literary skills
Right, it's the
around
writing, yeah.
writing is,
So he has the one kind of Zydeco song on Graceland, but the rest of the album is really, South African. And then
That Was Your Mother. He had that song, but he's playing a lot of this.
So it really was a focus instrument there on the record.
Oh yeah, it's got a lot of accordion music. He incorporates the music from these accordion players in Soweto, and I really liked his music. And I'd gone to South Africa. The first time I went down and played was in 2003, and I went down and played for Awesome Africa. Dan Cheruboli invited me down, and I think I was the only American there, but it was just amazing concert, kind of life-changing for me musical-wise, because I had dreamed and had this imagination of going to these places like that, and they just started happening. I've never really had a booking agent or a manager. Guess I'm too hard-headed. But I always had fun doing it myself also.
Yeah, how do you compare the way that they sort of run a band and go after it? Are they compatible? And is it kind of the way you run a band? Do you take anything away from the learnings from somebody who's at that level?
Oh, they work real hard. They've got giant machines of production. When you're going out on the road with a band that has 100 people in production, 7 tractor-trailer rigs of equipment, a couple of Lear jets, 4 travel buses at the same time. It's different. It's different than when I was getting my F-150, with the whole band. And but I had some great talks with Sting about, he did the same thing when he started. He was like, no, man, we came to America. We were all in a station wagon. We drove all over the country, and just we loved it so much, we just kept doing it for 2 years, So I had a great time talking, just hanging with him. I had breakfast with him every morning, probably for 2 months, and he'd come knock on your door, and we'd sit and play blues or something like that. He loved to play, and he was real player, and he's on it every day, all day. Paul, the difference was the rehearsals. I mean, they had to go and get Paul every day. We rehearsed 14 days in a row, at least 12 hours a day. He changes songs every night. He will change those notes. He gets you into the space where it's rote memory, then he changes the parts. And he changed parts all the time. And he might change only 3 notes. So you better play those 3 notes that he changed, and you have to really think on your feet, because Sting, once you got it down pat, and I mean, it's his observation, and you can really, you're really playing it the way it should be. It's just more like Zen-like, because he's also reading the crowd and doing the
More
whole...
of the improv element.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Standing on the corner, baby, right out in the falling rain. Oh, I'm standing on the corner, way down in New Orleans. Well, I got the blues, because my love don't mean a thing. If you didn't love me, baby, why in the world did you tell me so? If you didn't love me, baby, why in the world didn't you tell me so? Well, I got another little Creole girl. She lives way down in Karen Crow. Lord, now I'm standing on the corner, right on Martin Luther King. Lord, standing on the corner, baby, down on the corner, mail for me. Well, now you know I got the blues, because now my love don't mean a thing. Check that one out. Standing on the corner, I did that with Clarence Gatemouth Brown back in 2004.
When did you come up with the Afro-Louisiana concept?
I came up with the Afro-Louisiana concept here in New Orleans. When I, moved here, I was coming down excited to see some blues and experience it. And, I left to what I would call a rural woodlands of Arkansas. And I'd been there, all my life, although my relatives were here in Louisiana, and my father's family's from northern, a little north of there, Mer Rouge, which is, all my folks are right off the river. But I came down to dive into trying to be a musician and a park ranger. And And when I got here, it was, it was a trip. But having saw a bunch of African musicians here in town, like Ike Darrow, Sonny Ade, Manu the Bongo Man, Fela, all these folks were coming down to play in New Orleans, and they had something at Tipitina's called Africa in August. So Darrow was the one who really bit me, so to speak. He came out on the stage playing accordion and guitar, and he had 9 drummers. And that was it. It was him playing these riffs and chords and singing in a bunch of different African languages. But he was doing a lot of praise music, and the talking drummers just like blew me away. For a few years I was, deeply into, the piano music for sure. The Professor Longhairs, Fats Domino, all them people like that. And I was playing harmonica still. I was like, I want to incorporate this music into my, whatever it is I'm gonna try and do. I gotta put this in it because it's just like straight up so much like sounding like the Godfather kind of New Orleans music, and I didn't want to ignore it in the context of what I thought it was historically. So I was like, wow, this is really like Afro-Louisiana music, because I wanted to play I was playing rubboard and harmonica in Furnace Arsenault's band, Zydeco musician, and jockey, Etienne, the drummer, and I were good friends, and he started a band probably a couple of years later called the Creole Zydeco Farmers, and so I was going around with them playing music also. I was playing with a lot of people, but that stuff right there was like something I kept in mind. I said, Sonny Ade played in Ike Darrow's band also. So Darrow had a band called Ike Darrow and the Blue Spots. Sonny Ade, when he started his band, it was Sonny Ade and the Green Spots. So to honor those people, I was like, Sunpie, Louisiana Sunspots. And so I was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna do this. And most people thought I was crazy, but I was like, well, live by the sword, die by the sword. I'm gonna try and mesh this stuff together and make it happen. So still working on it, many years later, but it was the thing that struck me about having something that spoke to all these different folk styles of music. Whether it was in the city or it was rural music or wherever it came from, because it still had all those strong trace elements to me of Africa, and in many different voicings and ways and layers and levels. It's just real thick around here, and it pops up in so many ways. Well, I was come off the farm, so we had hogs and chickens and all that stuff. That, and I know what a farm looks like, and to me, New Orleans was absolutely the farm, for this kind of thing around music and the phenomenon where people come here just to be on the farm and soak it up, because they heard about it. It does have that mystique, and it's true, and it was true around, that kind of music, also African music, because at that time there was a lot of, somebody like Fela come to town, man, he come and camp out at Tipitina's for a week. Got 8 or 9 of his wives with him, a whole entourage. They cooking goats. I was 23, 4 years old, 23 when I came here, and I just had dreamed of being a musician. I had taken advice from a cat up in Little Rock, which was, blues was still doing good in Little Rock, but small town. But the main people I would go and see was Larry Davis, who was a guitar player. He wrote that song, cut that record, Flooding Down in Texas. So he's the one who told me I would go to the blues jam. I was teaching high school biology, and I just got through. I decided I wasn't going to try to continue a career in pursuing professional football, because I wanted to be an old blues man someday. My example for what adulthood looked like was my father and his generation. That's the closest thing to you, right? So, my old man was born in 1909. So, and that's a while back, and those things like that. And I did want to be still physically able to move around well, and I knew, having been up in Kansas City and playing on that AstroTurf at the time, which was like a piece of shag carpet stretched over concrete, that
Which positions were you playing?
I played outside linebacker. So,
That position has changed a lot, right?
Yeah, they have them moving around a lot. And I came up in the Lawrence Taylor era when it was definitely straight up buck wild, and you could do all that stuff. Also, like they would have you drop back in the hook or the curl zone when you were covering passes, but you could forget all of that if you saw opening to sack the quarterback.
Yeah.
So I was more like a sacking expert also, and everybody else is in the 3-point or 4-point position. And you stand up looking straight down the line, so you're looking right dead in the quarterback's eyes. You're right at the same level of height to him, and you can kind of read the blocking scheme and figure it out real quick because you're not down with your head down. You're standing up. Larry said, "Hey, man, if I was you," he said, "How old are you?" I said, "Oh, I'm 23." He said, "Oh, can I trade places with you?" And he said, "Man, if I was you, I would go to New Orleans because in New Orleans, if you go down there," he said, "now they got blues, but they ain't like our blues. They use all these horns and everything. But if you can make it being a musician there, you can go everywhere you want to go in the world." He was like, "The New Orleans musicians are the most traveled in the world." So I said, "I'm going to do that." And I had a job. I was here 11 days later on the scene. So that's kind of where I started with that. 'Cause most people don't even know what the Delta is.
Which goes on and on up into Arkansas.
Arkansas, Tennessee, starts up there, and there's a ton of blues up there. I wouldn't say that blues didn't jump out the ground right here in close proximity to this place, in the forms that people know it, because this has always been a town that synthesized so many other cultures
Yeah, it just
of
happened
people.
so long ago, it's hard to tell now.
Yeah, it's hard to tell.
Before they had the terminology of blues, which was like 1900, they were doing something similar in 1800,
Oh, they were playing it in New Orleans, absolutely.
And so it's the mishmash of all the migration people, all the boat types, the Italians, the Jews, the Spaniards, the French.
They're all here.
And the Native Americans.
Native American people, all these different African cultures, and so you have to take that stuff out to really understand. You got to separate it out and then put it back together, like a jigsaw puzzle. You can't get good at putting together no 10,000-piece jigsaw puzzle unless you take that sucker apart and pay attention, put it back together 4 or 5 times. Trial and error. But that music was going on around here, and it was being done in many different flavors and ways, and very sophisticated also. So that's what the world paid attention to. It paid attention to how this music coming out of this town, which used to be known as a big city in some ways, but it's not really so much that now, how it handled hybridization and hybridity and synthesizing music from many different cultures, taking all the good parts of it, forgetting the rest, trim the fat, and make it work for here, whereas in other places you have 1 or 2 singular things that are going on. It's not how this city was ever put together. It's in small fiefdoms everywhere. So those things helped, and that was things that I noticed. But I was working across the river down in Crown Point, Lafitte, and I noticed all the culture there that was kind of far from what was going on in New Orleans. But almost all the older people spoke some form of French. The Native American people speaking what I would call colonial French, probably the most correct. And then you had Creole and Cajun French, which were things that people had created and put together and borrowed from many different sources as well. That's kind of made a conscious decision when I got here around culture in general, since I was like a kid in a candy store when it came to, I wanted to relearn what I was in front of. And since I was in front of I had all these things available all the time, I learned to speak French. I wouldn't say it was textbook French at all, because it wasn't. I learned to speak it, from people that were around me, because I wanted to know how the people talk. I don't want to talk like a book. I want, in terms of like what was going on in Louisiana, and then out into the outward world. Now, it does help to be able to read and write French, but in terms of like the forms that were here, I wanted to study that. I figured that was my job, that was my gig. I was a park ranger, and I was an interpretive park ranger and naturalist, so I wanted to interpret culture and incorporate it in everything I was doing in that way. And that's what I did, so, learning from folks like that, playing in bands, like Furness's band and the Creole Zydeco 5. It was a 10-piece band. Everybody in the band spoke Creole. So, we just learned it straight up. I would go and hang out with Fats Domino. He spoke Creole. A lot of people around here. My father was a harmonica player and, had the music in the church, and there was some country music around, definitely. There were country music. We didn't think of them as stars, but they were stars until you start seeing them on TV and stuff like that. And, but my father was my earliest memory of some music, just being 2 or 3 years old. So he'd be playing the tune I was playing over there earlier, the 44 Blues, which was something that they all would play, and my old man loved that song also. So they would, around Christmas especially, when they would get together and play music, blues, all night long, just all night. Eggnog, an old charter, whiskey, and so they would make us stand in front of the living room floor and dance while they played and stuff like that. We'd go to bed, 2 o'clock, they were still playing. We lived, over in the all-black area there called Gravel Hill, across the tracks. We had 3 sets of tracks, the Rock Island Line, the Missouri Pacific, and the Santa Fe. And so I was our little all-black community, which was kind of composed out of a bunch of folks, some old people who had been there from the 1880s and 90s. Some had moved off of the plantations like my folks did, and moved up there and started moving family there. But I was number 10 out of 11 in his ring of children, so he quit giving lessons, said he wasn't giving nobody no lessons no more, having them play, because they wouldn't play it, they wouldn't do anything with it. He wanted them playing stuff like 44 Blues, but it was a standard regional song. My dad was raised up on these plantations with Roosevelt Sykes and people like that, like Bill Brunsey. They were all on the same plantations. These are big plantations now. At that time, the General American Farm and all these places like that. And but yeah, 44 Blues was like a regional thing. It was played all around the Delta. Everybody had different versions of it, as far as I know. And I liked the way my uncle played, because it sounded like what was going on in New Orleans. I didn't know that until I got here and started hearing the syncopation of what people like Professor Longhair was doing. The main thing that was heard and talked about in our house was Sonny Boy. Like my father knowing him, and my oldest sister knew him, and he would play this song. Her nickname was Sugar Baby, so he would play this song, Sugar Mama, Sugar Baby, on the radio. Yes, you having your good time now. Just like the flowers that comes in May. Yeah, I buy you a bouquet of roses. Lord, on every declaration day. Lord, you having your good time now. Just just like the flowers that comes in May. Well, I'll buy you bouquet of roses, Lord, on every decoration day. So when we were talking earlier about the Afro-Louisiana sound, I had kind of homed in on a few things that I thought were like people who had captured, just like what we're talking about now, like the basic elements that I thought were like the strongest in music that I had seen, like been in front of and witnessed, and that was like Ake Darrow. Well, I had a couple of them in New Orleans, and that was Fats, Professor Longhair, and then Clifton Chenier. You know, having seen him play at like Tippertina's and out there at the Zydeco Festival right before he passed away, that was the stuff that I thought was like I would incorporate. So I started playing in the Zydeco band, playing rubboard, the singers. This one holds a lot of power. It's one of the concert accordions, but saw Clifton and that was it. Oh man, I got to get me some of that. I had a series of dreams in 1989. A dream that I was playing accordion 5 nights in a row. So I went in the Werlines on a Friday or something, and right beside, on Canal Street, right beside the U.S. Customs House, which is where I banked at the time. The U.S. Customs Credit Union was in, so you go cash your check in there or whatever. And I went in there, got the money, paid my bills, and went to Werlines to get a harmonica. And the accordion that I kept dreaming that I was playing was hanging on the wall. It's a little Horner Bandmaster piano accordion. I was like, wow, that is exactly verbatim the accordion that was in the dream. And it was just so vivid. I ended up getting the thing. I was asking him, how much was it? And he was like, it's $1,450. I was like, what? He was like, $1,450? I'm looking at the harmonica in my hand, where I'm really making my money at. So I ended up getting the thing, and I financed it, which was something I'd never done. Not even with my car that I bought. I never bought a car and financed it really like that. And I got that thing and had it on it had some high interest, like 18% for 20 months or something crazy, 21 months. Took it home, didn't know how to play it. I'm just looking at it and sitting there trying to figure out what all these buttons are on it. My friend called me, Luno. He was the Cajun guy. We did some comedy and commercials and stuff together. And well, not commercials, but we were doing little routine for like conventions. And I had the speakerphone on, answering machine. And he said, man, what is that noise in the background? I can't hardly hear you. I said, oh man, I bought an accordion. And he had just asked me to come do an audition for a commercial, Sprite commercial. So I was like, what? And he was like, I'd never done an audition for a commercial. And I said, yeah, it's an accordion. He said, oh, bring it, man. They love those. They're going to love that. I said, I don't know how to play it. I just bought it today. So, stayed up all night, called in sick to work, and went to that audition. There was like 700 people there. But I stayed up. I could figure out some stuff on the piano side, but I didn't really know the other side of it at all. And I get my turn finally after waiting like 3 or 4 hours, and I go in there, and there's 4 people sitting at a table, and the guy's like, okay, let's hear what you got. And right before I went in, there's a dude on a unicycle. He's juggling a bowling ball, a pencil, and an egg. And he's on like a unicycle that's like 12 feet up. And I was like, what in the hell am I doing down here? And he said, like, he gonna get the gig, whatever it is, So I go play my little harmonica tune. I get about 30 seconds in. He was like, okay, thank you. He was like, next, see you later. And I turned around to leave, and I tripped over the accordion. I had it in the case. And he thought it was like a routine or something. So he said, "What is that?" I said, "Oh, it's an accordion." He said, "Well, let's hear it." And so, got the thing out, and I was scared to death. And I made the squeakiest, worst little notes you could imagine. And he looked at me. He said, "What are you doing tomorrow morning at 5 a.m.?" I was like, "Making a Sprite commercial?" And he said, "That's right, and don't be late." And so I was like, "What in the hell?" So I leave out of there. That's how it started. Got paid $2,000, went and paid the accordion off. Didn't the same next day. And when I was on the set, there's two little kids, young guys, told me, he said, "Man, you need an agent. You don't know what you're doing." And so they said, "Here, go call this lady. Call Claudia Spiker at New Orleans Modeling Talent." So go to pay phone and call her and told her what I was doing. It was like, "You have to tell her what you're doing." And so she said, "Well, you're already on the gig. I can't help you now, but I'll keep you in mind." So we do the commercial. That was on a Tuesday. She called me back the next day and said, "I got an audition for you with a McDonald's commercial." Mm-hmm. So I go and do the audition for the McDonald's commercial that day, and got the part. So I do the McDonald's commercial the same week on the Friday. And all of a sudden, I'm out of that. I've done 2 national commercials in 1 week. And so I was like, whoa.
Did you still have that accordion?
I do have it.
Okay. Yeah, you don't think you should get rid of
It's
that?
in the closet. I say, yeah, I'm going to keep that one. I've gotten rid of plenty of them before, but not that one. So that's how I started. And then I went down and I said, I got to learn how to play this thing. It's being too nice for me. It just got me out of, Dad, I don't have no bills. I got rid of my bills, basically. They weren't big bills, but they were, when you owe something, you want to get rid of it. So I made like $4,000 that week.
So talk to me for a second about how Zydeco incorporates blues, or if it just is a form. How do you see them working together?
I think Zydeco music is one of the formulas. I would best describe it as kind of amalgamation of it's Creole music, but it's based off of Creole blues, French blues, but not only because it incorporates rhythms from really from quadrilles, from mazurkas, from blues, absolutely, but they're kind of done in a blues format. I'll just play one like this here. It's got the and 1, 2, 3, and that's a if you're playing it right, you're really doing that with your bass drum. And then they have bass bar, which also is just like one of those forms that is not a 2-step, but more like a 1-step, and that form is another kind of creolized. So when you hear those, but they got the little passages. Bye bye, Chevy Mama. Bye bye, pauvre papa. Bye bye, mon frère and mon cher petit sœur. Moi j'ai roulé, maudit mon mal à faire. gagne une tête de trop dire. À ce moment est condamné pour la balance de ma vie dans les bas de la prison. You'll hear that rhythm in the Caribbean, you might hear it, and these are like things that are flipped around. They come from waltzes and they come from quadrilles, which were pretty popular, and they're still popular in the Caribbean.
So Zydeco also, not considered a kind of country music, but it is from the country as opposed to being like an urban type of music, really. I mean, in its origin.
Oh yeah, it's rural music, So it's out it's the music that comes from sugarcane industry. It comes from the ranching industry that people were doing here. A lot of the early cowboys definitely came out of Louisiana. So just like the song,
got some of that Western stuff too, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's
that's the cowboy lifestyle. Yeah,
it's cowboy lifestyle. So cowboy lifestyle comes from many different places across the border. From Mexico, of course, you had cowboys there. That culture here, was like a lot of Creole cowboys also that were here in Louisiana.
How would you describe like New Orleans's music impact on popular music?
Still the farm. It's the farm. Some of the people that I was mentioning, people come here for inspiration and just experience it and see like what is the mystique, and they can come to realizations and understand that how the place has changed a lot, but it's still very special in the context of what it has to offer, because there's not as many places where you can go and hear this kind of music and drive that people have, or go to a parade, go to a second line on the weekend. It ain't like it just started happening 10 years ago. Now with the YMO, doing it 143 years straight, and long before that, people were making the music for this reason. So, it has an influence on it. That's why Lemonade and things like that were done here, because they recognize the culture and that like it's something to tap into. They want to reshape, and that's the same thing. When Beyonce was doing it to me, she did it. She was able to she already had a wonderful career, but it just kind of elevated her into a whole different stratosphere and consciousness. Still, when she did that record here.
James Brown was like at the forefront of a lot of changes of the emphasis on the rhythm and the drum, but he has the line kind of before he gets into that phase where he's like, "Don't forget New Orleans, home of the blues." Then later on, he's like having 3 drummers in the band at the same time, and it's like every instrument is a drum, and this kind of is going back to square one. It was just the absolute reduction to the.
Yeah, and he used some New Orleans drummers.
That's what I'm talking about.
So did Michael Jackson.
Yeah, they all do that. Ray Charles came record here.
Yeah, he came
to
stay for a while.
You don't have to be from here. You just have to get it.
Yeah. They, that's what I mean. So it's still the farm in terms of that thing. So that's. That's just a head nod to the fact that people have miraculously kept things going, because the New Orleans music is all about the spirit transfer. And once you have that part of it, it's a springboard into just like a whole another different way and language of how you approach music. And the tonality of it is different. It's just a different accent. The beats and rhythms that you have, those are different accents also than the standard down the middle stuff that you hear in other places. So the Louisiana thing is deep, like the Mississippi River is deep and wide,
Sunpie Barnes, thanks for coming by Soul Country.
Thank you.
Well, Soul Country number 7 is in the books, with special appreciation to Film Delicious, Sunpie Barnes, and Reed Mathis for our theme, We Ride. 7 was brought to you by Ace Production and the Blues Center with funding from the New Orleans Jazz and Heritage Foundation. Tune in again for more roots music, culture, and lore as Season 2 rolls on with jazz rock author and pianist Ben Sidran, and find trailers highlights and playlists, as well as a full archive of episodes at soulcountry.com.